This is a special Walker Cup episode from the Back of the Range Golf Podcast. The finest amateurs from Great Britain, Ireland, and the United States will face each other on May 8th and 9th at one of the most iconic golf clubs in the world. We know the teams, but a certain mystique surrounds the venue. Seminole Golf Club. In the next few weeks, you'll hear stories from Seminole members, former Walker Cup captains, USGA officials, and other special guests. These are the Seminole Sessions, a preview to the 2021 Walker Cup match. And now, your host, Ben Adelberg.
And welcome everyone to the Seminole Sessions here at the Back of the Range Golf Podcast, a series of preview episodes focused on the 2021 Walker Cup to be contested on May 8th and 9th at historic Seminole Golf Club. I am your host, Ben Adelberg. Before we get to our first episode in the series, and it's a big one, special thanks to Mitch Phillips, who has provided the intro to every single episode here at the Back of the Range since day one. Mitch has done voiceover work for Fox, Showtime, NASCAR, HBO. He's done it all. So thank you to Mitch and all that he does here at the Back of the Range. I have several special episodes in this series that will lead you directly into the Walker Cup. You'll learn a little bit about the guests themselves and their incredible careers in the game, but you'll see that each episode gives some insider information on Seminole Golf Club. You might learn about what it is like to be a member there. You might learn a little bit about what the Walker Cuppers are going to face at Seminole during the matches. And you'll also pick up some interesting history on the Walker Cup itself. The episodes are going to be released at a rapid pace, so stay subscribed in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. How do you start a series like this? How would you kick things off? Well, you want to make sure that the first guest has a solid playing resume, a solid amateur career. In fact, since the Walker Cup is the pinnacle of amateur golf, perhaps it would be best to find a career amateur. All right, I think we have those boxes checked, but a lot of great amateurs can check that box. So what about a relationship to the Walker Cup? Did he play in one, two? Was he a captain? And look, these are the Seminole Sessions. The first guest has to have some knowledge of Seminole Golf Club. Well, Vinny Giles checks all of those boxes, and quite frankly, he checks more boxes than you could possibly fathom. 1972 U.S. Amateur Champion, 1975 British Amateur Champion, four-time Walker Cupper, victorious captain in 1993, and oh yes, he's a member of Seminole Golf Club. Now, I've left a few stats and accolades out, which you'll soon discover throughout this episode. It's an honor to open the Seminole Sessions with my guest, Mr. Vinny Giles. Vinny, welcome to the Back of the Range. How are you?
Thanks, Ben. I'm glad we finally got around to doing this.
Well, this is a perfect time. We're sitting here. This is Masters Week when we're recording this. You're no stranger to that place, and then we have the Walker Cup coming in next month to your winter spot at Seminole. I'm guessing this is a pretty good time to be Vinny Giles right about now.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. I miss being at Augusta. I think I went to the Masters, I guess, from early 1960s all the way up until really last year when, of course, we couldn't go.
Right.
And didn't go this year just because of restrictions and what have you. But,
sure.
Miss that. It looks like that's going to be a great week. And I think that, I know everybody's excited that Jordan Spieth looks like he's found some mojo again.
Yeah.
And that'll add a lot to that week. Weather forecast looks good. It's the golf. Golf is great. As you know, I mean, golf is on a real high worldwide. And that, with the Masters this week, which is always sort of the first rite of spring, and then Seminole hosting the Walker Cup in a month, really.
Yeah.
It's a good time to be in and around golf.
Well, you mentioned that you've been in every Masters since the 60s. I don't want people to think that you just somehow are able to get tickets every year. You've played in 9 Masters, made the cut in 3 of them, and we're talking here, like I said, on a Tuesday, and last night was the amateur dinner where you had Joe Long, the British amateur champion, joining Osborne and Strafacci. And we could fill up a whole episode of me asking you favorite shots and favorite rounds over your years of playing in the Masters. But as a lifelong amateur, you know what these amateurs are going to be going through at the Masters this week. What are one of your fondest memories of, not just on the golf course? We can pick out different shots, like I said, but what's something that the amateur really gets to cherish during a week at the Masters?
Well, when you go back to my time, and my first Masters was 1968. And back then, I have to say, I mean, it's different today.
Right.
One, amateurs are different today. I mean, we had career amateurs. We had Bill Campbell's and Billy Joe Pattons and Bill Heinemann's, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of those guys played in the Masters over that period of time. But more importantly, it was like a big vacation for us.
Sure.
My first year, I was in law school and hadn't played any golf and really hadn't even come close to playing no competitive golf at all, because it was wintertime in Charlottesville, Virginia, and secondly, I wasn't the world's greatest student. I had to study.
Okay.
Okay. And so, I'm gonna digress a little bit, but I was planning. We had Saturday classes at Virginia Law School, and I was planning to jump in the car as soon as Saturday class was over and take off for Augusta. Hopefully, get down there. Maybe even time to play 9 holes, because I figured I had to go learn how to play golf all over again.
Nice place to figure that out.
Yes, it is. I woke up Thursday morning, being 2 days before Saturday, and told my wife, I said, I can't stand it any longer. I'm gone.
Uh-huh.
And I threw my stuff in my little Ford Mustang and hit the road for Augusta. I think I was on the first tee about 3 o'clock that afternoon.
Sure.
We played, Ben. We used to play 36 holes a day. We'd play the par 3 2 or 3 times, and it was like going to camp.
Right.
I mean, they let us stay in the clubhouse. They served us breakfast. They charged us $1 for breakfast, $1 for lunch, $2 for dinner, and $1 a night for our room. Okay. Which was, just delightful. You're eating 5-star food at no star prices.
Right.
And as I say, it really was like a vacation. And of course, the USGA came along a few years later and said, "Oh, that's not proper pricing. You all have to start charging them a normal rate. So, otherwise, you'll be jeopardizing their amateur status." But it was a lot of fun, and it was fun until Thursday morning. And I can remember the 2 most nervous times I've ever had on a golf course. I'm standing on the first tee at Augusta Thursday morning, and it's my first Masters. It's a flawless day, probably 75 degrees and light breeze. And I look down, I'm announced on the tee, and I look down, my pants look like it was a hurricane blowing. And and funny that we talking about the Masters and then the Walker Cup. I mean, the second most nervous I ever was standing on the first tee in my first Walker Cup, and I was actually the first American player to hit a shot. And the flag went up, and the anthem was played, etc. And it was great, but I won't say I was scared to death, but I was not totally calm either.
Right.
And those are things that you remember. And as I said, I can't remember ever. I mean, nerves are, if you're playing good golf, nerves are fine. I mean, you want nerves, but you want good nerves. You want butterflies more than anything else. And that's kind of what I felt in both cases. I couldn't wait to go out and play, but I knew, I knew it was going to be quite an experience. So.
Yeah. Well, you got to benefit from a really nice perk where, you won the U.S. Amateur in 1972. And I think, gosh, I think that was just pretty recently that they stopped doing this, but any, United States amateur champion that kept their amateur status was always invited back to play the par 3 contest every year.
Yep, that's correct.
So I'm guessing
Yep.
that's kind of how you were able to keep coming back year after year. I don't have the record. Do you have a hole in one on the par 3 course?
Never made a hole in one. No. But just to again go back a little bit. One of the reasons that I was there every year was because of our business. We're representing. Every year we had at least 5, 6, 7 clients playing in the Masters.
Sure.
And quite honestly, being springtime and what have you, it was kind of deal week for us. I mean, we did pretty good amount of business down there.
Sure.
Because you had all the international people there. They were looking to line up players to come to, the UK, to Europe, to Japan. And back then, they paid appearance fees. It was nothing like what they pay today. But,
right.
Back then the guys weren't making that much money. So if somebody would give them a $25,000 to $50,000 appearance fee and pay all the expenses to go to, let's say, to Tokyo to play in the Dunlop Phoenix,
right?
They were all in on it. So it was a busy week, but that had a lot to do with why I was there every year, not so much the par 3, but you're right. Up until a couple of years ago, what they called us was honorary invitees.
Right.
If you stayed amateur and had won the U.S. amateur or the British amateur, you were invited to come.
Well, and another thing too that you're able to do is that the Walker Cup teams were invited to they got a spot in the Masters. I think probably until about 1990. I think it was.
I don't know how long it went on, but it did, and the World Amateur team,
right,
of course, was a 4-man team. But yeah. Well, as you know, I mean, Bobby Jones, when he founded Augusta National, he very much wanted amateurs to be involved. And it wasn't until fairly far along, I think actually Dean Beeman was the commissioner of the PGA Tour, who sort of made his record as an amateur, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But he and I think Howard Harden got together and said, well, these amateurs aren't that good and they're taking up space, so we need more pros in the tournament.
Yeah, it was Howard Harden. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the field they've been in the low hundreds, maybe a couple of times.
Yeah, I think it's 88, 89 this year, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, normally it runs in the no more than 90, 95 players. I don't know who they thought was cluttering it up, but anyway,
Well, I think it's good to have the amateurs there. You, this is kind of a question that still applies to, I mean, all the people that listen to this podcast. A lot of them are, guys that have a 9-to-5 job, or, women that have a 9-to-5 job. They're trying to get the most out of their game. How did you balance law school? And then you referenced your business. You started, Pros Incorporated, which you were representing players. How did you balance managing, players on the PGA Tour? You had to get your law degree, but you've won numerous Virginia titles and USAM and just there's so many different titles that you've won. How were you able to balance everything and still play good golf?
Well, I think part of it was probably, I think I've always been blessed with a pretty simple golf swing. It's not one that's, not one that's going to get way out of whack. And I was able to practice some when I wanted to. I mean, in the afternoons, in the evenings. I played a very limited schedule, actually, my whole life. I mean, I never played in the Western Amateur. I played in one Sunny Hannah. I played in one Northeast, but in August, I was able to really focus a lot on playing golf because I played in the Porter Cup, the Eastern Amateur, and the U.S. Amateur, all in about a 4-week period.
Sure.
And that's when I really did my most damage because I could tell by the time the U.S. Amateur was over. I mean, I could tell I'd gotten 2 2 to 3 shots around better than I probably was in June.
Gotcha. So this is almost like you just crunched everything into one small
Yeah.
period of time and you just went at it. Yeah.
I mean, it was really reps. I mean, I hadn't really thought about it, but the record that I guess the best record that I guess I could be proud of is in a 7-year period from 1967 through 73. I had one finish in the U.S. Amateur outside of the top 3. And that was the 6th in 1970. I mean, every other time it was either, first, second, third. I mean, all those other years. So,
and the thing, I'm glad you mentioned that because again, you won it in 72, and that was the final year that the U.S. Amateur was actually a stroke play event.
yeah.
And most people listening, are around my age or possibly younger. They're saying, "Well, wait a minute. I think of the U.S. Amateur. I think of the match play duels. Tiger against Marucci and Tiger against Scott and tons of other ones. Doc Redman beating Gim at LACC and all these different ones, or Riviera, and." But there was stroke play at a time, and people are thinking, "Well, wait a minute. I thought the U.S. Amateur was always match play, but." I mean, you definitely have thoughts and experiences on playing both, where it was match play and stroke play. So I think I'm correct. You believe it should be stroke play. Is that right?
Well, I love match play. I think match play is great, but my theory, and I will stick to it. At USGA, I got a little sideways with them about it,
sure,
because they didn't like my comments, but. If you go back Ben, from 65, which was the first match stroke play year, Bob Murphy won. From 65 through 72, if you looked at the top 10 finishers, you could probably say that 6 of those 10 were in what you'd call your pre-tournament favorites.
Gotcha.
If you go look at the quarterfinalists in match play over all the years, and the couple of, I won't mention any names, but fluke winners, you will see a lot of disparity between that and the stroke play.
Sure.
When you're talking about your national championship, and especially today when there's safely 300 great college players.
Right.
You and I go play a match and I shoot 66 and you shoot 65 and I'm on the way home and we're in the top 5 on the leaderboard. Right. So to determine a national champion, to me today is you've just got to play stroke play. And I say that loving match play, but you've got the Northeast, the North and South, and some of those other events you can play at match play. Last year, what was Tyler Strafassi, 30-something when he won the tournament?
Yeah, Tyler was not, if I remember correctly, with his stroke play portion of the North. You're talking about the North-South, right?
No, I'm talking about it at the U.S. Amateur.
At the U.S. Am?
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. We're going to look it up because I want to make sure I include this in the episode. So hold on 1 second. I'll tell you right now.
But my point was, and he'd had a hell of a summer. He had a really good summer. He was a very deserving winner, no question about that.
He was the 41st seed.
Yeah,
and
Ollie. But more importantly, I'm looking at world ranking.
Oh, I'm sorry, Vinny.
Yeah,
I thought
No, he was like 35th. Those other 3 kids in the semis, I don't think were in the top 300 in the world.
No, they weren't. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about.
So that tells you that if it'd been stroke play, I don't think all 4 of them would have probably been there.
No, you're
taking nothing away from any of them. I'm not demeaning in any way their performances, but it goes to the fact that there are that many great players at that age, and you would define them a lot better in 72 holes of stroke play.
Sure. No, It's an interesting conversation in theory, but you're 100% right. I can't tell you how many times you'd have these guys that finish maybe top 10 in the stroke play, and they're playing some fantastic golf, and a couple bad holes, and some guy goes on a run, and that's it.
Oh yeah,
that's it.
No, it's unlike the NCAA basketball. It's not unusual for a 64 seed to beat a 1 seed.
Right. Yeah.
No,
you're 100% right. So, you mentioned match play, and I definitely need to ask you about this. Incredible record you have at the Walker Cup. You played on 4 teams. You're a captain of the '93 team in Interlaken in Minnesota, and I mean you're basically sitting at number 5 in all-time points for the U.S. and really you're behind guys that have played in more Walker Cups than you. So I mean you're sitting behind Sigel and Campbell and Ouimet and Billy Joe Patton.
And you're doing a lot of homework.
Well, it's easy.
Good for you.
It's easy to find information about you, man. I mean, I got other stuff I got to roll out because I don't think people quite understand who I'm talking to right now. But so you played in 4 Walker Cups, and your first one is age 26, and there's kids that are going to be playing in their first one this year. And I know Akshay Bhatia, I think, was 17 2 years ago at Liverpool. Mm-hmm. So you're basically, when you start your Walker Cup career, you're basically the equivalent of a very young mid-amateur. So when did Walker Cup become something that you actually could look forward to? I mean, you had this great career at Georgia. You're All-American there, but was it on your radar at Georgia?
I would say, I mean, I made not that All-American means anything. A lot of it's politics, like so many things, but I finished second in the NCAA my senior year at Georgia. It was at Stanford. Murphy won. Yeah. And I mean, to be honest with you, Ben, I knew I was pretty good by then.
Sure.
I'd had some decent finishes in some other tournaments. I don't think in '66 I hadn't won the Southern Amateur yet. 60s, really, when I got to law school is when I started, winning golf tournaments. Strangely enough, I guess I was so happy to be out of class that I could relax. But I thought a Walker Cup was realistic. I was an on-site medalist in the U.S. Amateur in '64. I had some other good college success, so it wasn't like I didn't think I could play with my peers anyway.
Right.
And then, of course, finishing second at the U.S. Amateur in '67 puts you on, and I won a Southern Amateur that same year, puts you sort of on there. I mean, the USGA has to look at you whether they want to or not.
Right.
So, I knew that, I knew I probably at that point deserved to at least have good consideration. And then finishing second again in the amateur in '68, having won a Southern Amateur and a couple other things. I knew I was good enough to make a team. Now, whether or not I got there was a different question. And I'd made a commitment. When I went to law school that I wasn't going to turn pro. So all of a sudden, if you really think about it, and the reason I sort of quit playing competitively when the USGA snubbed me one year is the only goals you had if you weren't going on the tour was to make those international teams.
Yeah.
So that's what you really strive for, and that's why you kept your game sharp, and that's why I tried to play a lot of competition in a concentrated period, because I thought, I mean, it's funny. I could tell from August 1 till the end of the U.S. Amateur, I would pick up 10 to 15 yards off the tee.
Okay.
And that was just reps.
Right.
That was just, stretching the muscles in the back of your left shoulder more and more.
Right.
It wasn't anything. Yeah, it wasn't lifting weights. I wasn't on a protein shake diet or anything.
You are not the Bryson DeChambeau of amateur golf.
No, no, sir. But it was just something that you had a goal. I mean, that was sort of my goal as a kid playing golf, and I started playing golf when I was 5, so it wasn't like I hadn't been around it forever.
Sure.
But my goal early on was to play in the Masters, and that was my number one goal. So you even back then people set goals.
Yeah, you have to, and
Yep.
I'm looking at this. I guess like now when you look at the Walker Cup teams, I mean, I think it was probably around. Actually, I think it was right around '93 when you were captaining the team. I think that was one of the last years that there was actually a mix of mid-ams and college kids, where where you still had the Mitch Vogas and the John Harris, and you still had a couple of those guys knocking around. But now it's really just college kids, and then they let Stu play with the kids. But
no, that's right. I mean, they throw one on there just as a token,
right?
And but you're right, and
I'm thinking it sounds more fun. I'm thinking it sounds more fun if you had a mix of mid-ams and younger kids. I would think.
Well, I think that the GB and I got where they were getting beat so badly.
Yeah.
That they said that we don't care. We're going to try to find the best we can. And the USGA finally, after we lost a bunch of times, they finally said, well, we're going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
We're no longer going to just capitulate. I think it's too bad, but if you really look at it now, it's like what I said earlier. I mean, they're easily 300 really good college players.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched this kid, Osborne, play in the finals. I mean, I'd never heard of the guy. I looked at him and I said, well, with all due respect to Tyler Strafossi, this kid's potential is unlimited. I mean, I don't know if you saw any of the amateur finals.
I was there.
Well, God, I mean, that kid looked like he was a world beater.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful golf swing.
Yeah.
A lot of power. And who was he? I mean, he was number 346 in the world or something.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. He mowed through a lot of people, and that match was. I mean, I think in fact, Osborne was like, I think 4 up through 6 or something ridiculous in the morning round of the final. He was probably like 4 under par through 6. He was just absolutely on fire. And I was looking at him and he was looking at me and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, all right, keep doing it. Well said. So,
no, but I mean, you look at that. I mean, somebody works with him and gets him comfortable and what have you. I mean, he could be the next superstar. Who knows?
You never know.
They're out there. There are a lot of them.
You picked up 10.5 points for the United States in your 4 Walker Cups, and I know you had 1969 in Milwaukee, and then got to play the country club at Brookline. I mean, those are 2 great American spots or venues for the Walker Cup when you're here in the States, but it doesn't get any better than 71 and 75. You're at the old course in St. Andrews. I mean, you got to be kidding me. I mean, how lucky are you to be, a kid from Virginia and you're going over to play the old course twice?
Yep. No, that was pretty special. And I'll be honest with you, the first year we played in 71, which we lost, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know how, because we had a lot of mid-ams that weren't very good. Probably I was one of them. But I couldn't stand that golf course first time I played.
I'm glad. Okay, good, because that's what I was going to ask. Okay.
I mean, I thought it was the most, unfair, whatever you want to say. In fact, I think ABC was doing USGA stuff then.
Yeah.
And I think it was the first time they televised the Walker Cup. And they're asking us questions. And the question was, well, having played now this was during the practice round, having played 4 or 5 rounds at the old course, tell us what what you think of the old course?"
Oh no.
And I said, "Okay. And I'm not very good at lying about stuff like that. But I said, "Well, I'm going to take the very diplomatic route." I said, "Well, it's certainly a unique venue. And if Bobby Jones said that he had only one round of golf to play in his life, it would always be at the old course. It must be a wonderful course." That was my answer.
That's well done. I'd like to present you with the Best Actor award.
But it's funny. We got over there 4 years later, and you could figure why we went back, because they beat us. They said, "Americans don't like this course. We can play them here again."
Yep.
And we played our first practice round, and I hit a couple of shots that I thought were wonderful. It ended up in those little pot bunkers, and I was steaming. And I got into bed that night, and I said, "You got to be a dumb son of a bitch." I said, it can't be this bad." And I started dissecting holes. And the next morning I said, "Shoot, this golf course is a piece of cake. All you do is hit it left all day long." And, from then on, not only was I comfortable, I thought it was one of the easiest golf courses I ever played.
There you go. Just got to know the joint.
I mean, there are only about, 2 or 3 holes you can't hit it left on. So it really was amazing. I mean, it changed my whole attitude about it. I said, you're letting the golf course beat you, and it's doing a hell of a job of it.
Yeah. Well, you got to know where to miss it. You just got to know where to miss it.
Exactly right.
So you mentioned this, you do these kind of like these summer runs of, the Northeast and Sunnyhana and USAM, and you just really kind of compound your game. But in 75, you're there to play the Walker Cup, and I guess that's probably held at the end of May. And then you go over to Royal Liverpool and you win. I'm guessing, was this your only appearance in the British Amateur?
No, I played in it in 71.
Okay.
After the Walker Cup, and I went back in 76 to defend.
Okay, so you won.
I felt like something I had to do.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure. So you win it in 75 at Hoylake. That's got to be just an incredible, what were you there for, about a month? At least 3 weeks?
We were there, we were there a good 3 weeks, I'd say. Yeah.
That's a nice stretch. And you are, and gosh, I can't help myself of dropping little nuggets here, but you, sir, you're the only man that's ever won the US Am and the British Am and the US Senior Am. You're the only one that's ever done all 3.
To date anyway, and I probably stay that way because none of these kids are going to ever play in probably 2 of them.
No, you're right. You're right.
You're not going to see them around.
Why? Now, I know that we can get it. We can go down a rabbit hole of how much money is in professional golf. And as you said, you're running your company, Pros Inc., and you're representing players like, Tom Kite and Watkins and Davis Love III and Meg Mallon. And I mean, we can go down a rabbit hole of just the money, but I actually looked up, for example, in 2019 on the Korn Ferry Tour, you got a guy that made $125,000 that included a win. And I don't want to say that $125,000 is not a lot of money, because it is, but it's a lot different to make $125,000 when you're sitting in a desk doing a 9-to-5 job, as opposed to being on the road, playing 25 tournaments and paying your instructor and your travel expenses.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot different there. I almost think that some of these young kids don't understand that there's a just incredible world waiting for them to be a career amateur, because it can open so many doors where you can make a very nice living and get to do these incredible things. Do you think that they're just missing the boat?
I think the lure, and I think some of it is financial, and God only knows, Ben, how much of it might be parent driven. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
But you've been around it. I mean, if you went to US Amateur, you saw some of it. Some of these parents have hitched their wagon to that star, and they're AJGA from age 12, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the other side of it is, if a kid's had some limited success, somebody at his club or some friend of his father's or somebody with more money than sense says, "Oh yeah, I'll give you $50,000, $70,000 a year. Go out there and play." Well, that's like taking, for some of them, it's like a vacation.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't think much about getting better. They just think, God, I can go out and drink beer and chase girls and play golf all day. The ones that are really good, most of, I'm using I'd say the small minority
Sure.
when I'm talking that way. But a lot of them they don't have any motivation at all. They got a free ride to go play golf till finally somebody pulls the plug on them.
Yeah, I see a lot of these, I see some of the young kids, they make it and they get out on tour, but then I hear these stories or see guys that are like 34 and still chasing it on the Corn Ferry Tour. And I'm thinking like, if they make it, that's great. But if they don't, like, do you turn around? I mean, what do you put on a resume when you're 35 years old?
Well,
I mean, I don't know. What offerings do you have?
You're exactly right. I mean, and most of them aren't suited to become a club pro.
No.
Because they wouldn't have the patience to deal with some of the membership.
Yeah.
Take them about 5 seconds to say what they really thought, and that'd be the end of that job.
Well,
and you're right. I mean, how many Jim Hermans are we going to ever see again?
That's a great example. A guy that's won twice, and that's great. And I'm thrilled for a guy like Jim Herman. But how many, like you said, there's a lot of Jim Hermans waiting to happen that are never going to happen.
No, absolutely not. I've always said, if they haven't seen pretty good success by 30, they need to go look at a different career.
You've been on the executive board of the Southern Golf Association, Virginia State, and what do you think it would take to maybe grow the amateur? I know grow the game is a really popular phrase, but I'm talking about growing it in a competitive way where it's not just first tee's great, PGA Junior Golf League, that's great, but I'm talking about where people are really trying to make it to a USAM or make it to a Sunnyhan or play in competitive events. How do we?
Well, we've tried, and Alan well. Alan's really tried hard with that AGA to try to encourage people to get back to playing stuff like the Concession Cup as a goal, etc. But I think the horse is too far out of the barn.
Okay.
I mean, these kids now, every one of them, it's no different than the basketball players or the football players. They're told from the time they're 15 how wonderful they are.
Right.
And what a great opportunity they've got and how much money's out there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's their whole focus. I mean, you mentioned Batia. I mean, he never had any intention of going to school.
No.
And a lot of these kids are going a couple of years and that's it. It's not. And a lot of them that are going and they're staying there 4 years are probably, they probably got enough grade points to be a sophomore.
Yeah.
They're not going to school very hard.
Sure.
I'm guessing. And I mean, good kids. You don't find a better kid anywhere than Jordan Spieth.
Yeah.
Where did he go? 2 years? 1 year?
Yeah.
1 or 2?
I think he went 2. He won. I think he won the national championship in his last year at Texas. But I think it was just 2 years. I'm guessing by the listening to you talk, I don't think I could imagine you starting a company like Pros Inc. Nowadays.
It would depend. It would depend on how it got started. You're probably right. I probably wouldn't because the guys are so different. I mean, we had, tremendous loyalty with our clients. I mean, Kite was a client of ours from 1974 until we closed it, or actually I walked away anyway in 2007. Gary Koch, I still do Gary Koch's TV contract work.
Yep.
I still do Lanny Watkins' TV contract work. I'm not telling you that I'm doing the greatest job in the world, but we're friends, and there's still a lot of loyalty there. Today it's interesting. Michael Bamberger.
Yes, I do.
I was talking to Michael yesterday. He was actually calling to thank me for introducing him to somebody. And he had just gotten off the phone with this Amelia Migliacci, or whatever, how you pronounce her name. He interviewed her yesterday. And he said that she said she had absolutely no interest in being a professional golfer.
You're 100% right.
And he said, well, why? And she said, because all professional golf is about me, 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 me. Says, I enjoy my friends, and when I do stuff, I want to collaborate with people. I want to work with people. Now, does that hold up forever? Who knows? But it was a damn refreshing comment.
I remember them saying that during the Augusta National Women's Amateur, and I was thrilled to hear it. I just was like, yes, we need more we need more of those. We need more career amateurs.
Yep. Well, we need some of these people to get a little smarter and realize they can. We know a lot of people that made a pretty good living playing amateur golf.
Yeah.
Bill, you go back to the Billy Joe Patton selling lumber, and Dale Morey selling furniture fixtures, and Dean Beeman selling insurance, and Jay Sigel selling insurance, et cetera, et cetera. They didn't sell all those products because they knew their products better than everybody else.
I'm guessing golf had something to do with it, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, no question. Yeah. It's how I got into our business. I had a number of young kids come to me and ask me if I would help them while I was actually in the investment business. It was funny because they said, you're a lawyer and you're in the financial world, and you must. I want to say, I don't know a damn thing more than you do, but we, quite honestly, to some extent, we were the beneficiary of the fact that Mark McCormick's group charged so damn much money that people said, I just don't feel right paying them that much money. So, they had a lot to do, but that's really how we got into business. Just because when I was playing the Porter Cups and the Eastern Amateurs and the U.S. Amateurs, that's where I got to know a lot of these young players. The Kites and the Alan Miller, which probably the name doesn't mean a thing to you, but he was a hell of a player who never did pan out. I played on the Walker Cup team in '75 with Peyton, Burns, and Koch, and we signed all three of them.
There you go.
And that really put us on the map. All of a sudden somebody said, hey, these people must know something. They're signing some pretty good players. So
you mentioned, I know that you worked with Tom Kite, and I don't know why this popped into my head. There's a very famous photo of Tom Kite doing some sort of a workout thing in Golf Digest where he's basically just wearing a pair of gym shorts and he's hooked up to a machine. Were you with him when that thing happened?
No, but I remember it.
I don't know why that's burned in my head. I really wish it wasn't.
Yeah. It wasn't a pretty sight. Well, there's a great example. Again, digressing, Ben, but now there's a kid who you think about. Tom Kite and Ben Crenshaw grew up together.
Uh-huh.
Ben Crenshaw was probably one of the most God-given, gifted golfers that ever came down the pike. Good athlete, good-looking kid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Kite was kind of a geeky-looking, glasses-wearing son of an IRS employee.
Right.
And quite honestly, if you put them together, Kite's career was at least twice as good as Crenshaw.
Agreed.
And Kite worked his ass off. He worked so hard. When he went on the tour in 72 or 3, two, I think, might even been 1. He had the worst golf swing you've ever seen. And that's when you had to be in the top 60 to be exempt for the next year.
Right.
And he spent the whole year trying to change his golf swing and still made the top 60.
That's putting work in.
I mean, he was the hardest. He was the first guy on the practice tee and last guy off the practice tee every day.
I was at a Champions Tour event in Naples 2 years ago, and guess who's on the range beating balls
Absolutely.
Tom Kite. And I'm just like, really? Yep. I'm like, I mean, I wasn't surprised.
Absolutely. He still to this day will work. He'll still work hard, not as hard, I'm sure, as he used to.
Sure.
But, he to me is one of the greatest overachievers in the history of the game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember there was that one article or someone was like, well, this guy can't make a layup in basketball. And I think his response was, well, that's not my profession. My profession, like, I'm not a basketball player. You're right. I may not be able to do that, but I can hit a fade, 9 times out of 10 and hit 9 balls in a basket. So
perfect. I'm not a basketball player.
I'm like, look at me. I'm not.
I can whip Michael Jordan's ass playing golf.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's like you got to know your role. This is my role. Yep. I'm in the Hall of Fame. Thanks.
That's funny.
So I feel like you and I can get if you and I were sitting together with a glass of wine, we could probably go 4 or 5 hours. But we're not going to do that today. But So let's talk a little bit about Seminole, and obviously the Walker Cup's going to be there in a few weeks. And, you're a member at the club, and I guess, we could talk a lot about the course, and I'll ask you a couple of things about the golf course, but I have to ask you just about being a member there, because the more I think about it, I talked to Mr. Ford, and, he told me about the Skins games, and the club is all about the golf. There's no fancy dinners or breakfast buffets. The pool got filled in, and there's no tennis. I mean, it is just golf.
No, it's a pure golf club. Yeah, no question about that.
But to be a member there, like the people you're surrounded by that have these resumes that are really in the same neighborhood as you. You have other Walker Cuppers and Walker Cup captains and winners of this. I'm guessing this is one of the only clubs that you really want to be at, just because of the caliber of players, where it's all about the golf.
Well, that's of course the way. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I was fortunate enough. Barry Van Gerby, who I didn't know that well, I knew him some. I knew his brother Mickey better. When Barry came in I guess right around 1990, late 80s, early 90s. And he said, I want people to know more about Seminole. And I want, some good players to be able to experience it. And I'm going to try to get some good players to join. And he asked me in, I think, 92 or 92, I guess, because I was 49 years old. So I want you to join Seminole. And I said, well, Barry, I'd love to. I love the place, because I'd been lucky enough to come down and play in some of the member guests way back in the 70s and 80s. And I said, but quite honestly, I said, first of all, I got a job. I got fairly young children, and I really can't afford it. I mean, I can't afford it financially. And I said, now, if you let me mull it over for about a year or two, maybe something will change. He said, all right, I'll do that. Well, about 6 months later, he called me and said, now, you got to join now. So anyway, that's when I joined, because I knew even back then, Ben, that, it was really, and I'm not a club joiner. I mean, I basically joined, I belonged to a club in Virginia and a club technically I belonged to 2 in Virginia, but one of them I helped start. So,
sure, Kenlock, yeah.
And one down here, and that's it. I don't belong to any others. I never joined any of the other clubs. I didn't have any need to.
Right.
But Seminole is, to me, it's, and not only is it a phenomenal golf course. I mean, I would put it up as, if you ever talk about a course you could play every day with good people in changing conditions, there's none any better.
Right.
But it is pure golf, and and I don't care what your handicap is. The golf DNA is really good, and people understand that golf is not necessarily a 4 hour round. It's not necessarily a 4.5 hour round. There's no reason it can't be a 3.5 hour round. And that's probably what they average at Seminole, and that's playing at a normal pace. Of course, you've played the golf course.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the easiest walking golf courses in the world.
It is. It is.
Because, you can spit on the next tee from most greens. So
yeah, and then there's a couple inclines, but for the most part, just like Florida, it's relatively flat. So.
Oh, no, I used to say all the time, I said, my next life, I want to come back as a caddy at Seminole. 3.5 hour rounds, you get paid $250 when you finish, and you're walking on flat ground. And you don't have to walk very far.
That's not a bad gig. And the thing that I thought was so interesting, like the last time I was there, I saw you on the putting green, and you were actually working on something, and don't say you weren't, because I saw some tees in there. You were working on something, and I was just like, that makes sense at Seminole, but I'm thinking at other clubs, someone would see like, what's that old guy doing over there in the putting green? What's he working on? Why is he working on his game? But at Seminole, you would see a guy like Vinny Giles doing some putting drills. That makes perfect sense.
Well, I tell you, we spend, as I say, a lot of it is nothing but bullshit, but we spend an awful lot of time on that back practice on that iron range. Hitting balls, talking, a lot of it's talking golf. It's talking about golf clubs and shafts and, what did you see about this, that, or the other thing? So
right.
it really is. And they're a lot of good and knowledgeable players there.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
It makes a difference. You mentioned Buddy Marucci. Hell, he's usually, when he goes to practice, he's usually got at least 40 clubs in his cart.
Oh, that's perfect. I got to talk to him next. That's perfect.
You never seen so many golf clubs. He got a set of TaylorMade, a set of Callaway, a set of Titleist, and 5 drivers and 12 shafts, and
I'm gonna pick on him about that.
He's the world's biggest tinkerer.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's a lot of people that I could probably ask, what are the keys to success around Seminole, but let me see if I got this right. Is it true that you shot better than your age at Seminole?
The first time I ever shot my age was I shot 64 at Seminole when I was 65.
Oh my God.
And that was the first time I ever shot my age.
Okay. So please tell me, who are you playing with that day, and are they still friends with you?
I was playing with, I don't remember all 4. I was playing with Barry Van Gerben. I was playing with Jack Vardaman. And I do not remember who the 4th was.
64 at Seminole.
I still got that golf ball around here somewhere.
I hope you still do. What?
I don't know where the hell it is.
Well, I'm sure you will find it somewhere. What? Okay, now I know that the kids that are going to be there in a couple weeks hit it, a country mile. And
it's a little different game.
It's a little different. I understand that, but still, as most people know anything about Seminole, they know it's a second shot golf course, and you need to position yourself correctly. If any of these kids on the U.S. team, and please, I hope they do come talk to you and ask you for advice, what would you say to the U.S. kids that are looking to keep the cup?
I would say, one, just what you said, go ask some people, get a good caddy, etc. And, they have, to their credit, they've been up here playing some.
Okay.
They had 5 or 6 of them down here last week. Haggerstad's been here a lot.
Okay. Perfect.
Well, he doesn't have to do anything else anyway.
Yes.
That's a guy that can afford to stay amateur.
I love it.
And still claims to be working. I don't know what he's working on.
It's these are questions that maybe we'll just never get answers to, but that's okay.
Yep. But he's a good guy.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And he listens to this podcast, which is why I'm laughing so hard.
Oh, good, good. But anyway, I think they've got to learn to so much is going to depend on the weather. I
Yeah.
hope to God we have 15-mile-an-hour winds at least.
Okay, so you want to
I
see
mean,
at least a 2-club wind.
yeah, no, I mean, 15 to me is a club, maybe a
Okay.
club and a half. But
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to see it blow 30 because that's no fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the golf ball won't even stay on the green if they won't even be able to cut the greens the way they want to if it looks like that.
Right.
But Seminole needs wind. I mean, you put your finger right there so long.
Yeah.
There's a lot of strategy that I don't necessarily. I've watched some of these kids play, and I wonder. Our sixth hole, for instance, they get back there and hit 3 and 4 irons off the tee, and leave themselves a 160-yard shot. Now, that green is not easy to hit with a wedge. So to me, I mean, they are, some of them ought to be challenging that bunker. I don't in the fairway that's at probably 290.
Yeah.
I mean, they ought to be trying to hit it 275. So all they have at that green's a wedge.
Yep.
I mean, it's a big fairway. It's not like it's a tiny. The fairways, as you know, at Seminole are very generous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their holes, the first hole, assuming you've got the winds you think you will, which is going to be out of the southeast in mid-May, they might be able to drive it on that green. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not drive it down in a greenside bunker or something?
Yeah.
But then you've got other holes that they've got to figure out. I mean, I watch them on 10.
There he is, the legend.
And they hit
Vinny Giles.
3 irons
Thanks
off
so
the
much to
tee,
him
and
for
they
joining
leave
me
themselves,
here on the first
depending
episode
on
of
wind
Seminole
conditions.
Sessions here at the Back of
But
the
they
Range.
leave themselves
Make sure
a
to follow
7
me
iron,
on
8 iron
Facebook,
shot to the
Twitter, and
green.
Instagram. Stay subscribed.
Again, I'd
I'll
challenge
see you next
that
time
water
here
a little
at
bit
the
more,
Back of the Range.
where I can hit a 9 iron wedge to that green. There's some very strategic tee shots from a yardage standpoint. The greens, they've got to learn where to miss the ball. There's some of those shots you don't take. The 12th hole is, I think, one of the greatest short holes in the world. And I don't care where they drive it. If you put the pin in the front right corner and you hit your shot a little bit, you might not finish that hole.
Yeah. No, you're right.
You get one of those bunkers, you try to get a little cute, you either leave it in or you hit it a little too hard, it goes back in the other bunker. And and again, I've never been a believer that in match play you play the golf course 100%. And Seminole's a perfect example of watching what your opponent does.
Yeah.
You can play defense and offense on that golf course very, very easily. But I think most of it's getting used to it. I mean, I think if they get in good practice sessions and realize that again, they'll have a weather forecast. They'll give them all that information.
Sure.
But if they realize what kind of wind they're going to have, et cetera, preparation is going to be as important as anything else.
That is very well said, and I've had numerous conversations, and I've been thinking about it myself, and I guess selfishly, obviously I'm an American, so I'm rooting for the U.S. team, but really the main thing I think I'm also rooting for is, look, amateur golf is not televised very often. We get the USAM, and I know Golf Channel is handling the college game very well, but still it's a handful of events, and then it's the national championship. But amateur golf is going to be on a worldwide spotlight. I think it's a regular PGA Tour event that week, and it's not a major. And this is going to be what people are looking at. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't want Seminole to be a pushover, but I also don't want a 4-club wind where the best amateurs in the game, people are, the layman's going to be like, these kids are terrible.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's funny you mentioned it because I look at what I saw, because I did watch the latter part of that ladies Augusta tournament.
Right.
And it was terrible. I mean, it was just awful.
Yeah.
I mean, they're making doubles and triples and I mean, as I said, it looked like, they were just throwing up all over themselves. It was sad.
Yeah. And
I mean, that little girl we mentioned earlier, Amelia Migliacci,
yep.
I'm not sure how you pronounce her name, but I mean, she had not even, when she walked off the 18th green, she wasn't even thinking about playing any more holes of golf.
Yeah.
There were people out there 2 under and 1 under and even all over the place behind her. And none of them could. And I mean, gosh, if you really think about it, the two that were in the playoff both hit it in the bunker off the tee and hit the lip coming out and got it up and down from 80 yards.
Yeah. No, you're
crazy.
100% right.
Yep.
So what are your plans for I'm going to be there for the Walker Cup. I'm as much as I'm excited to see the play, I'm also excited to see who I'm going to bump into in the gallery. What are your plans for the Walker Cup? You going to be there both days?
Yeah, we're going to normally we would go back earlier. We're going to stay and go back right after the Walker Cup and we'll be right in the same gallery you're in.
That's
I have no rough. In fact, I don't think any of the ex-players or captains, other than maybe Spider Miller, really have any official role at all. Spider's involved with something. I'm not even sure what, but no, I've never been asked to do anything. I don't think Buddy has. I don't think anybody else has that I'm aware of. So
you're just going to be rooting.
Yep, which suits me just fine. And and as I say, I mean, you've seen the progression of courses for the Walker Cup. It's pretty neat to keep going back to these old, well-known places. I mean, and after this they go to Cypress Point, and they've been to Pine Valley, and they've been to about every that place you can think of.
Yeah.
But I think. I don't know if you went to the Walker Cup at National.
I haven't. My first one was 2 years ago at Hoy Lake, and this is my second. And then I'm already looking forward to the 23 at St. Andrews, and then 25 at Cypress.
Yeah. Well, it's just. I mean, I went to the one at National, and I mean that's really why we are having this one at Seminole.
How so?
I spent a lot of time with Jimmy Dunn up at during the Walker Cup in 2013 at National, and I mean he was so blown away by the whole scene that I think he almost immediately went to Mike Davis and said, we'd like to have Seminole considered to host a Walker Cup. The one at National, Ben, was, I mean, I've never seen it. It was, if anybody will ever outdo it, I don't know how they can do it. I mean, it was perfect weather. Bush 43 was there for 3 days, did a nice talk at the opening ceremonies, etc. Played golf with some of the ex-Walker couples at Shinnecock the day before.
Wow.
It was just this word that these kids have fallen in love with, surreal. It was that kind of experience. I mean, it was just spectacular. You just couldn't paint a prettier picture.
Yeah.
And that really, I mean, that got Jimmy's juices flowing fast. And I think we actually had a commitment from the USGA. That event was in August. I think we had a commitment from the USGA by September or at the latest October.
Wow.
I mean, that's how quickly it evolved.
And I'm guessing that the membership at Seminole have to be just over the moon thrilled about this Walker Cup. I mean, it's one thing, because I also think, when I think back to like an Oakmont or an Oakland Hills or even a Shinnecock, when they get a major championship, yeah, the membership's really excited and proud of it, but but for the membership at Seminole is so many guys that have actually played in a Walker Cup. It just has to have a different feel. Instead of just beating your chest saying, yeah, my club has this. You're like, no, this is all coming full circle. I played in 75, and now I get to walk in the gallery while it's played at my home club.
Yeah, and it's kind of giving it's probably kind of, again, like the match with McElroy and Dustin Johnson. It's giving the world a little feeling this place isn't quite as exclusive as we thought it was.
Yes.
And that was a lot of what Barry Van Gerbeek felt. He said, I don't want people to think this is for lack of a better term, a snob club.
Right.
It's a golf club. So I think it'll be great. As I say, I hope the weather's cooperative. Although I will say, and you probably saw it at least on television since you didn't have any spectators, but the TaylorMade match that the guys played in the summer, they didn't play that very well at all.
No, they didn't.
Now, granted, they weren't grinding.
No.
Their hearts weren't really in it, but still, that golf course didn't play that hard that day, and I think they hit 6 or 7 out of 16 par threes. So, it's not easy.
Nope.
And you put your finger right on it. It's a second shot golf course. Yeah. Totally.
Well, Vinny, this was a real treat. I'm so glad that we got to spend some time talking just about your career and your thoughts on the amateur game. Honored to speak to a lifetime amateur. And I will be seeing you in a few weeks, sir, at Seminole for the Walker Cup. I appreciate the time, and thanks for stopping by the back of the range.
Yeah, the pleasure was all mine, and we will have a good time at Seminole in a few weeks.
And there he is, the legend, Vinny Giles. Thanks so much to him for joining me here on the first episode of the Seminole Sessions here at the back of the range. Make sure you're following along on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Stay subscribed, and we'll see you next time here at the back of the range.